All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We're looking at part 4, which is all about blood. So the three things that we're going to be looking at today is what makes up blood, the components, how does blood clot, and then what makes the different blood types. All right, so let's look at the three types of cells that you're going to find in blood. Guys can highlight these on your paper because they're just going to be in black and white for yours, so make sure you label them. So the red ones, which would make sense, oh my goodness, they're going to be the red blood cells. We also call them erythrocytes. Thrombocytes are the platelets labeled in yellow, so these guys. And then the leukocytes, these big green ones, are going to be called, or are the white blood cells. So make sure you know not only the common names, but also these specific scientific names of these ones. Okay, so let's look at what each of it contains, or all of the blood contains. Two main parts. We have plasma, which is 55%. And of that 55%, 90% of it is water, and 10% of it is dissolved substances. Of the other 45%, they're all cells. So these are the three cells that we talked about: red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. So we're going to get into a little bit more depth on what each of them are. So let's look at the dissolved stuff in the blood, and this is part of the plasma. So there's blood proteins, albumin, and fibrinogen. We're going to look at fibrinogen in a moment. Gases, which we've talked about in the respiratory system: oxygen, carbon dioxide, and bicarbonate. Nutrients, waste, vitamins, hormones, and salts. So all these things are going to be dissolved to go to their certain areas in order to provide the functions that they need to provide. Let's look at the cells. Red blood cells are the most numerous. They have this unique shape, which is biconcave. So if you look at it, it's concave on both sides. This is facilitate the ability to go through the capillaries. They're really small, and so it kind of makes this smaller buccal type shape in order to fit through. They lack a nucleus also in order to create this smaller shape. And as we know, hemoglobin is actually inside these blood cells. So it's not in the plasma like some of the other blood proteins are. Also, carbonic anhydrase is carried on the red blood cell, and as we know, that's an enzyme that's used to facilitate the change into bicarbonate from CO2 during in order to get out as during respiration. And the last thing, it only lives for about 120 days, so 3 to 4 months. And the reason why is that when it keeps going in and out of these capillaries, it gets friction, it keeps getting worn down. And so just over time, they break down just like any other cell would, and then they go to the liver to be disposed of. All right, so white blood cells, quick and easy. They're largest in size. They contain nuclei, unlike the red blood cells. And finally, they fight infection by two things. They either engulf it through phagocytosis, or they produce antibodies, which are going to target foreign substances for destruction. Platelets, we're going to get into quite a lot of detail in a minute. Very small, irregular shape, as you can see. They're not these perfectly round things. And what they're going to be doing is they're going to be involved in blood clotting. Here's just where they're going to be made. Everything's made in the marrow, blood marrow, which is just in the long bones. And you don't need to know the different types, but you'll see those again in a year or so in anatomy and physiology. All right, if you look, here's our clotting network. All of these little nettings is meant to harness in the red blood cells. So if there's a cut, that's what's going to do it. So this is the process. This is probably the most elaborate thing that you're going to need to know, this unit. And what happens to start it off is we have our vessel that is ruptured. That was the sound effects there for rupturing. What's happening is these platelets are coming along and they get rubbed. And what happens when they get rubbed by that foreign, I guess not foreign, this broken vessel, they release this thromboplastin and calcium from the platelet. And just like we did in the excretion unit, is everything that was produced caused something else to change, which caused something else to change, same thing. So this thromboplastin, what it does is it converts prothrombin, which is made by the liver. It's a globular protein, and it changes it into thrombin. And what this does is it not only needs C+, but it triggers the conversion of this fibrinogen into fibrin. And the reason why this is important, it's an insoluble. And if we want something to be in water to actually act as a netting, it needs to be insoluble or not dissolved in water. And then finally what it does, this fibrin, is it clots by holding in those red blood cells. So here's a nice little visual. You can go back over this again. This one here is the same thing as the thromboplastin. So get rid of that and insert thromboplastin. And then it just, a little visual. So take your time, go over this one, stop it, check it out visually what's happening. But we want to get into the blood types in order to finish off because we're running out of time. Try to keep this one under 10 minutes. So an antigen and antibody. So an antigen is on each cell, and what it does here, these little circle things, is it is the name tag. It's the security card that says I'm meant to be here. The antibody is the security agent that's coming around to see if you belong here, and if you do, awesome, great, and he leaves. If not, he targets you for destruction. Skip that one, wasn't on yours. So blood typing. Oops. So this one here is talking about a universal donor. What actually is a universal donor? These ones. So just a little background. We talked about genotype before. This is what's given from your parents. Each of them are going to be giving you one allele or one gene type. And so if you get an A and an A is dominant, and you're going to be given the blood type A, which means that each of those cells are going to contain one antigen, antigen A. O is recessive. It means that it has no antigens at all. So if A is present, you're blood type A. Same thing for blood type B, and a unique property about blood typing is it's co-dominant, which means A and B are equally dominant. So if they're together, it means you're going to be expressed this blood type AB, which means you have two antigens. You have antigen A and antigen B. If you have zero antigens, you have zero antigens donated from your mom and your dad, you're going to have blood type O, which means you have genotype OO. And what that means is you have no antibodies whatsoever. The last thing is if you're a plus or a minus, like AB plus or AB minus, it means that you either do or do not have this Rh antigen. So it's this third type. So for example, if you are given O negative, that means you don't have any antigens whatsoever. And so that's why you can be O negative and you give your blood to anybody. You're the universal donor because you don't have an antigen on there that will be rejected. However, if you have A plus and you're giving it to B minus, that means that you have the B antigen and no Rh. However, this is giving you an A antigen and an Rh, and your body's going to reject that because it's a foreign body that your body's not used to. All right, so as a summary, I think we're just about out of time here. What do you need to know? The components that make up the blood, what the characteristics are, so shape, and then also the function and the process of blood clotting. Spend about another 5 minutes on this going over and just trying to get a mnemonic device, acronym, whatever, in order to try to remember the different proteins. And then finally, what creates different blood types. We're going to be spending quite a bit of time on this one class. We'll do a little activity investigating the different blood types. But hopefully that helps. And if you have questions, as always, bring them in tomorrow. Thanks so much.